This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground magazine.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to a joint episode of RVBusiness Capital Talk, sponsored by Eric Sell, as well as Woodall's Campground magazine's Parks Update. I'm Rick Kessler from RVBusiness and Woodall's, and joining me is Ben Quiggle. Ben is our WCM editor. He's pinch hitting for Sherman Goldenberg on the Capital Talk side of things. But joining the two of us today is a very special guest, and that, of course, Toby O'Rourke, no stranger to both industries. Toby, you've been with KOA since 2011, and you're almost ready to celebrate an anniversary as president and CEO. I think it was 2019 in March, maybe?
Yeah, I became president in 2018, March, and then a year later became CEO. So it's coming up on that time. It's crazy. It's gone so fast, honestly. It's crazy when you say those numbers out loud.
Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
So much has changed too. I mean, you've been through a lot, before COVID, through COVID, and then now after COVID. It's just been crazy to see how the industry, both the RV industry and the outdoor hospitality industries, have changed.
Yeah, I agree. I look back at just my tenure over these past 5-6 years as the executive leader here, and just the amount of growth KOA has had in that time has been immense. And, with growth comes a lot of challenges. And we've tackled software system rebuilds, and we've, changes in leadership, and we've brought on campgrounds, we've bought campgrounds, we've sold campgrounds. We, obviously launched our new glamping brand. And then in the midst of, having a pandemic, also in the mix of all of that. So there's been so much change in just a very short amount of time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just crazy just to see the industry, even on the technology side. It's been interesting to see how it's grown just in the last 3 to 4 years, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. I guess, you mentioned some of the things KOA's faced over the last few years. I guess, how are things looking for 2025? Are they looking pretty good? I know things kind of stabilized for a lot of people in 2024, I guess.
Well, I think, to talk about 25, we should talk about last year a little bit. When I look at our numbers, we had that peak of occupancy, the peak of people coming out to camp in 21, similar to that peak of RV sales, and have had declining camper nights, or that's how we measure occupancy since then. And I keep hoping we're going to kind of hit the point where we're going to rebound and start to increase those camper nights again. In 24, we still were down in camper nights to the previous year. So, my comments to our system is, it's time to rebound, and we're really focusing all of our efforts on trying to curb, that growth back upwards. And I'm hopeful that happens, but I'll tell you, our outlook right now is not as good as I would hope it would be at this point in the year, on our advanced reservations. I think there's a few things to factor in there. I think some people are hesitant to book reservations this early. We're just coming off, the election and all the changes happening in the country. So I think now people might start resetting and thinking, okay, here's where I'm at economically. This is what I'm comfortable with, and maybe start booking those reservations again. And so I'm hopeful that'll happen. But as of right now, where we're sitting, we're down a little bit to last year in terms of occupancy. We're keeping a close eye on it and employing a lot of strategies to try to get that occupancy going back up.
Toby, I'm curious, and just to relate it to the RV industry, RV Industry Association likes to look at their shipments numbers month to month or year over year. And if you take out COVID, it's still on a general incline. Is it the same way with your registrations, your camper nights? If you take out that COVID spike, is it still a decent incline?
Yeah, for sure. Business is good and strong, but I will say, and I think this is true for the whole industry, that COVID set us back. I think there was this big boost, and we think that really catapulted us forward. But I think our trajectory, we'd be farther ahead now had COVID never happened. Where we were headed into those 10 years prior to the pandemic, and if you just look at math and where we would be, we'd be farther ahead than we are now. So, that's tough, kind of a tough pill to swallow, and we kind of look at the data that way. Business is very good. Don't get me wrong. We had a record year, year before last. We ended last year just shy of that record. So the business is very, very healthy, but I think we'd be even further ahead had we not had that pandemic in the mix of it. And I think that's true for everybody in our industry.
Okay,
So
fair enough. Yeah.
I guess I'm curious. I'm a journalist, so I get a little curious. When you say like we'd be further ahead, so what kind of? I mean, COVID we had like a surge in people, and then so what's kind of stymieing us from reaching those numbers that you think we would be at then?
I'm basing this off of math based off where we were at on our compounded growth year over year on registration revenue. If you extrapolate out where we would have been following on that same trajectory, we'd be at a higher revenue number then than we are now. And so there are things, yes, a lot of people came out to camp, right? We've got to get those people back. Maybe they've dropped off, they're doing other activities. I think it's really important that we, realize there's a little bit of a reframe that's happened here. Now what's positive in all of this is camping and outdoor hospitality is, I think, more squarely in this travel consideration set now, right? People are thinking about where they stay in a given area.
That's true.
And so you're being considered right up alongside hotels, right? That's all really positive. So I think that we continue to lean into that. We have to reinforce our value proposition and reinforce what are the positives about an outdoor stay versus a traditional hotel stay or a traditional trip. A lot of people went cruising last year, right? We're competing in different ways, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's positive as a lot of people were exposed to camping. We need to remind them about all the fun they had and get them back. Because I do think we're seeing people engaging in other traditional forms of travel right now. And I think that's had an impact on our business. The other thing I think had a big impact on our business last year is this pressure on the lower income households. We know that to be true. That's not data I made up. That's coming from the major banks in the country talking about the pressure on that lower income segment. When they're faced with that financial pressure, they're defaulting on credit cards, they're defaulting on auto loans. They're going to make tough decisions about how they spend their discretionary income. And so maybe they don't take as many camping trips this year as they did the year before, or maybe they don't take one at all. Or they take a shorter stay than they had. So I think that has a big impact on our business, because I'll tell you, when we look at the data, during COVID, we saw a big increase in people, higher income households camping. When we look at the data last year, and as our preliminary data that we just running for our report this year, that's resetting. That we're more in that middle income household. That lower income household plays a significant portion, or is a significant portion of the camping base. And so if they're facing economic pressure, that's what we have to respond to. We have to be thinking about who we're targeting. A few years ago, we saw a lot more higher income households coming in. That's a whole different way we market to those people, a whole different way that we appeal to them. And we have to reset a bit and refocus.
I have
Yep. Go ahead. Sorry, Rick.
That's okay. Sorry, Ben. Is part of the answer to, or part of the challenge anyways, something that you've brought up the last couple of times you've been at the RV Industry Power Breakfast, where you've talked about the pain points that campers have been experiencing. Does that play into this?
Maybe. I think that the easier we can make the experience, the more we retain somebody, right? So what I've talked about and continue to talk about is that camper journey. That's true of any industry. You should be looking at your customer journey and finding those points of friction, finding where those things are difficult, and how can we, there's what's been great about since I started that dialogue with the industry. I've had so many great conversations with companies all across our ecosystem that are, looking at how do they make things easy from their piece of the puzzle, right? The more we can streamline those points of friction and make it easy for people, the more likely they are to continue in the activity. So you may have went camping out of necessity during the pandemic, let's say, or you chose to do that. If it was difficult for you, and that could be a variety of factors. That could have been difficulty at the campground itself. That could have been difficulty in the rental experience or the purchase experience, or afterwards, maybe in the repair cycle. whatever point of friction that they're experiencing that might cause them to not want to do it again. And so we just want to be aware of how we engage and do research about that, engage with customers, ask those questions, and then try to streamline it as much as possible. I think it's just really, really important. It's good business practice in general.
And I remember too, from the first year that you brought that up to the second year, most recent year, a presentation on that, you did mention there has been improvement.
I think so. We see the improvements in our data, right? We see the improvements in measuring people's satisfaction with their first RVing experience. So we like to ask that. We saw a marked increase of people saying that their first experience was positive and great, and that's what we want to see. Because a metric we use at KOA is a net promoter score. How likely are you to recommend KOA to somebody else? That simple question. There's math behind it, how you can determine how many promoters you have or how many detractors. And we've been doing this research for a long time. And KOA is at its highest level of net promoter this year, a 71 in this scale. That's the highest we've ever been. And that's among world-class levels. And brands that you would know, such as Costco or Starbucks, are up in those upper tiers. And I think it's just really important that at every touch point of our customer journey across our ecosystem, we're asking that question. Because if someone's like, I wouldn't recommend it, not only do we just have somebody passive about the experience, we now have somebody actively detracting from it. And so for the growth of our business, we need to be building promoters.
Agreed.
Yeah, I guess we had a recent story about, the glamping and kind of how that impacts RVing to some degree. I guess, we just wanted to talk a little bit about your thoughts on, do glampers become, those RVers? Are we like funneling glampers into that? Or is that its own segment, I guess? And
yeah, I think we look at it both ways. Sorry, I'm still a little bit of an echo. Okay, there we go. I look at it a little bit both ways. First of all, I really believe, again, I was talking about the reframe, right? I think that what's happened here is outdoors has come into the conversation in the broader travel landscape, right? And that's why you're seeing hotels take notice. People like the outdoors. They like outdoor experiences. I really think this glamping segment is a different base of customers, by and large. These are people who don't consider themselves campers, right? And they are interested in the outdoors, in this outdoor stay that's this convenient, they're tapping into convenience. They don't have to take stuff along with them and they get to enjoy this outdoor experience. So I think it's a different customer base by and large. Do I think some campers glamp? Absolutely. I think there's crossover, but I know even in our glamping product, we're targeting a different person than our traditional RVer. I view them as two separate customers. Do they become RVers? Possibly. We did ask the question in our research that we'll be getting ready to release this spring. And something like 44% of glampers said they were interested in RVing. They did say they were likely to rent an RV. They might not be willing to go right out and buy that RV, but I think they're open to trying because as we know, we work in the outdoors. It's tough to go back in, right? The outdoors is great. You want to be in the outdoors. You want to keep camping. You want to keep trying different experiences. We even see that just within camping segment. People might be an RVer. They try a cabin. They bounce around. And I think that we'll see glampers try RVing and get a taste of it. They'll like it, right? Especially if we're delivering upon those things that appeal to them in glamping: comfort, convenience. And so I think that part of this is a reframe and it's a different customer set, but I think this is a good target audience to talk to about continuing their introduction into the outdoors in a different way.
Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, that glamping audience, that glamping segment, they're the ones that are all about the experience. They're the ones posting on Instagram and I guess TikTok again. But it seems like that's the crowd that really wants to, I don't want to be derogatory, but bougie.
Yeah, right. It's comfort. It's comfort. It's convenience. It's unique experience. We've saw for years, people want unique experiences, right? Picture worthy. And especially if we're talking to hotel guests that they go to any given market and they're first searching for that hotel. and we're getting them to try a glamping experience. Oh, wow, I hadn't even thought about that. Or this is unique. This is something different. And I think that that really appeals to millennial, Gen Z, demographic. And I think it's healthy. The more people we get in the outdoors, the better. And then, like I said, let's keep them outside. Let's show them other ways to engage.
For the, I guess for the RV industry, you know, would glampers maybe be more looking at those like fancier motorhomes? I mean, I look at these new Mars, they're like 500 grand to $1 million or whatever, and I'm just thinking, when you look at the high end glampers, I guess, I mean, maybe that's something they'd be interested in, I guess.
I don't know. I really want to understand some demographics and to better answer your question, right? If they can afford that, if that's the right segment, I don't know. I think there is some, yes, that can. But I think it might tap into how do we solve on convenience and comfort, right? And so it could be, there's really great product out there that I'm super excited about on the RV side that's definitely delivering on comfort. And I think if we can continue to figure out convenience and solving those points of friction, you're going to appeal to a glamping customer. That's why I say the rental experience is interesting, because from what my counterparts in the rental side of the business are telling me, a lot of their business is that delivery to site. So people are renting that, whether that's from Outdoorsy or RV Share, or what have you, RV Care, they're renting this, and then the camper's showing up. It's already set up for them. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to drive the RV to the site and back it in. They don't have to, figure out what they need. And so the more, those people that are renting out those RVs, that when they're delivering upon that convenience, I think that's appealing to glampers. So that might be the entry. Yeah. And like, okay, I think I could do this. And maybe next time I'm going to rent it and drive it somewhere, or maybe I'm ready to buy it. So I don't know if it's so much the price point. I think it's the experience.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, I know from my own personal experience, it's also, maybe getting the truck or maybe having a place to park the RV. So those are definitely different factors on RV usage too. Maybe they're not, maybe they like the idea of owning an RV. They just don't have the space to put it somewhere or the truck to tow it with. So
I think that's a big part of it. Not sure. I think where people store RVs, where I live, everybody's got an RV at their house, but that's not the reality for a lot of America, right? That they might have, different covenants in their neighborhood, or they might live in the city. So a lot of glampers are coming out of those metro areas. So we got to think about them differently. You have to think about, and this gets to the pain points discussion, what their needs are. And you're hitting on it squarely there. Okay, maybe they can't store it or they don't have a way to pull it. So how do we appeal to them? Maybe it's a smaller motorhome that is going to be more convenient to them than the traditional travel trailer, for example. So I think that there's lots of things to consider.
I've got a shifting topics a little bit, Toby, although you've already mentioned it a couple of times, and that's we're seeing the hotel industry. All of a sudden, they're getting interested in the outdoor industry. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think the outdoors has entered the conversation. Their guests want unique experiences. They want to give their guests a range of options, right? So a lot of the partnerships you're seeing emerge are marketing partnerships, whereas they can promote like an auto camp or location to their existing customer base. Is giving their guests more value because, through my membership, I can get discounts or exposed to or points at a variety of places. Look at all these great new things they just opened up for me. So this is a way they're delivering on more value to their customers because they understand that things have changed. Customers are interested in outdoor travel. So it's smart on their part to expand their offerings. And then you're seeing, a little bit of entry about, okay, now instead of just marketing them, which by most of the play right now is that way, we're going to own some inventory. I think we'll start to see more of that. Okay. I do know hotels are also adding unique ways to stay on their existing properties in an outdoor type of model. So I think we're going to continue to see more of it because that's what customers are asking for. And I think it's good in that, again, it's bringing more people to camping. So all these people maybe that didn't think about it before or think about outdoor stays are also being exposed to it. So it's exposing us to new audiences and our type of business.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I didn't think of that. I mean, they're trying to take a bite out of our pie, and at the same time, they're bringing more people to the table. So that's the bright side, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it plays out over this next year. And there's a lot of money out there, and a lot of people looking to place their investment in these segments. So I think we'll see even more things happening out there, especially as all the brands are going to want to. One brand does it, then the other hotel brands are going to want to do it too, so they can keep pace. So I think we'll see some more movement.
Yeah, there's a reason why McDonald's and Burger King and Taco Bell are right next to each other.
Right.
Ben, you had something?
Yeah. I mean, I guess just kind of on that front, I guess, we're looking at the public park sector, and there's a lot of activity on that end as well. Is that positive for private parks to see all these public parks investing in their campgrounds and different things? I mean, to some degree, I can see where that's like positive, and the other side of it is they're going to maybe be more competitive, I guess.
I've always been a category growth person, the person who looks at the category and how do we grow the category. So if the public parks are improving, that's great. We're going to have less detractors from the activity, less people not wanting to camp again because they had a bad experience. They're going to have a positive experience, which they're going to continue in that cycle of camping. So I think that's positive. I think I was a big supporter of the Explore Act, getting more investment in outdoor infrastructure. I think the more we can modernize our public parks, the better, and level them up. I think it just grows the pie and grows the experience and eliminates those points of friction. So, I do hear it. I think for the most part, our KOA campground owners see the bigger picture and feel that way. I do hear it a little bit about competition with the public parks, but it's pretty small. I think most of us in the camping business are about positive camping experiences. So I know that a person might camp 4 times a year. I know that maybe I'm getting one of those stays at a private campground or at a KOA. Maybe I can appeal to them and get 2, but I want to make sure their other 2 that they're having out there, wherever it is positive, so that I don't lose them as a guest altogether, right? So we all need to improve.
Toby, I'm curious. Maybe I'm backtracking a little bit here. When you do your annual report, which is phenomenal, by the way, always is, what's the breakdown between tent campers and RV campers, and how has that maybe shifted over the years?
Well, tenting's gone down over we've been doing this report for 10 years. I think when we first started doing it, tenting was 70% of the camper base. We're just, RV was like 25%. So of all the people, the millions of people that camp out there, it's like 3 million camped last year. I haven't seen all of our updated numbers for our new report, but let's just use those round numbers. That shifted over time, so it's more around like 55 to 60% are tent campers.
Okay.
And then the rest of that is split between, lodging, accommodations, and RV. RV had hovered around a quarter, 25%. I think we've seen a little bit of drop off on that these past couple of years.
Okay.
My guess is that that's not people going into tenting. That's probably people going into lodging. So, there's more to dig into there. And our new report will be out in March. And we usually show that historical trend. Yeah. But in general, tenting has decreased a bit and accommodations have increased.
I remember the first few times sitting in on your report, and you mentioned that those tent campers, as far as the RV industry is concerned, those are your customers, those are who you should be targeting. It sounds like they're still camping. They're just choosing maybe to go into a yurt or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Or, a cabin. So if you talk about glamping, where we were at a minute ago, when you ask people, how do you define glamping? The site type said the most is cabins.
Okay.
So cabins are what people equate with glamping, right? So I think we might have in our head the yurt, the canvas tent, the majority of consumers think cabins is glamping, right? So that's how it's self-identified. How do you glamp, right? So yes, I do think tenters are going into lodging. I think some tenters are buying RV. I think there's been a lot of work done to try to understand that path into RVing. I do think they're a great target because again, it's just like we were saying earlier. Once you're outside, you don't want to go back inside. So how can I be outside more comfortably?
Yeah.
And grow in my experiences in the outdoors. So I do think that they're a great target audience.
It's tough to cook a s'more in a hotel room.
Yeah. But going to our point earlier, it's so interesting to me, and I'm sure you've seen it as you travel. Everybody is tapping into this, right? Again, they know it's trending, so there's s'more. They'll bring the little fire to your table at the restaurant, and you can make your s'mores. And we've got that naturally built in. We can own it even more. So, I think it's all really interesting to see how people are taking more notice of what's happening outside right now and trying to bring that inside in their experiences.
Okay.
To the tenting point, I guess, is some of that decline too? Because, I hear from a lot of private park owners that they just got rid of their tent sites.
Right.
And I know KOA, I think, requires at least some portion of tent sites. Is maybe the decline of that due to that people are limiting tent sites?
I think there's so many places to camp. We're going back to the public park conversation. There's so many places to pitch a tent, right? There's so many opportunities. But you're right. Within the private traditional RV park sector, I think there has been a decreasing amount of tent sites. Now I hear that from our franchisees that they want to reduce tent sites. So we require at least 2 tent sites on every property. We do allow dual sites where you might have a smaller site that could fit a smaller RV and it can also be a tent site. So I'm seeing more and more people put in dual sites that have that flexibility. I don't know if it's led to the decline because I think there's so many places to camp. I think, if we really, there's been research done, right, on the amount of parks out there, but I think there's so many places to camp, particularly even if you're in a tent and maybe even more so. But that said, in our world where we exist at KOA and you guys, I do think there is decreasing tent sites. Absolutely.
Okay.
Mainly because the rate, I think they can't command as high a rate as you want. And they could get more. There was such a demand for sites, right? A few years ago, parks were it's such high capacity that they could get so much more money off that site if they put an RV on there. And so we saw people wanting to reduce tent sites. I would like to talk about that a little bit since I've got an audience with the RV side of the business. Is when I talk about decreasing occupancy in business, I'm talking. What I'm very clear in saying is there is places to camp. There was a big narrative, right, and dialogue around campgrounds are full. That is not the case. And it hasn't been for a couple of years. It was very, very tough to get campsites during the height of those years, but that's not the case anymore. And I want to make sure we're not perpetuating that. Because if a camper says, oh, well, I'm going to bother make my reservations, they're full. I know we should have camped this summer, but I waited too long to make reservations. We'll never get one now because they believe that to be true. We're hurting us all. So there's absolutely occupancy and places to camp.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges the industry faces is just how people find that inventory. I know KOA has a great website, so if you want to stay at a KOA, you guys have a great website. They can look for all the parks. But I think on the other side of it, we have like places like Spot Tonight and Hip Camp and things, but it can be a little difficult to explore campsites, campgrounds, and what's available in a certain area that you might not be familiar with. So
talk about a pain point when you're out there, when you're where to camp, and that whole part of your journey is extremely difficult. In any given market, you have to go to a variety of websites. You have to figure out how to find the state parks. You have to figure out how to book on the national parks. You have to figure out, if it's not a KOA, what consolidator is out there that I can go to. I think it's a huge gap in our industry that there's not a good consolidated place to camp. I think we'll have one eventually. I think there is going to be a a one-stop shop, or, at least to have most of the inventory. I think that would serve the campers very well. There's obviously a lot of challenges in getting that to happen, but it's a huge gap.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry.
Nope. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, we've been talking so much about the challenges we're facing, and I'm sure there's plenty of others we could talk about, but I don't want us to lose sight of our successes, our accomplishments. I mean, we're in a great industry. We're making memories for people, good memories.
Absolutely. So positive. That was just so reaffirmed for me. This week, I actually was in North Carolina, in Asheville, we had a property completely leveled during the hurricane, right? And it's just it was amazing to see how it's just this blank canvas, everything gone. We lost every bit of infrastructure, all sites, all buildings, everything. And as we were there, this older couple drove in to the park. We have it all blocked off. So, our VP went over there to ask, can I help you? And just a couple, they're like, we've been camping here for 20 years. We just wanted to see what was left. And they were just so upset about the state of the campground. But it was just such a heartwarming moment. And when we told them, like, yeah, we're going to be rebuilding, and how excited they were, right? And I think it's really important to center on what we do for people, right? We're connecting them to the outdoors. We're building memories. The woman wanted to tell us all about where her granddaughter's favorite spot to camp is on the park. Like, this is lifelong memories that we build for families, and we're in such a cool business. And you can't say that of a lot of businesses. It's just remarkable. And I've had a couple of those moments over this past month they kind of stop you in your tracks and help really reset the business that we're in. It's pretty easy to get focused on numbers and occupancy percentages and insurance rates and all the things. But when you step back and really think about it, we're in just a really, really special business that a lot of people aren't as fortunate to work in. I think it's pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, that's probably a good note to end this thing on. I can always talk to you forever, Toby. You always have such great insights. So it's been just fantastic getting to see you through the computer again and be able to hear what you have to say. Just thanks for everything, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for connecting with both of you, connecting with all of our counterparts in the industry. We feel very fortunate to be so connected in to both the RV and the campground side, and you two help facilitate that for us in many ways. So we appreciate always allowing KOA to step to the table and have conversations like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thanks everyone for watching, and we will be back again next week.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com.